Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to do a quick rundown of some of my favorite palettes for fall. If that sounds like something you're interested in, stick with me. We're going to get into it right now. So I'm not one that runs around and says, this palette can only be used in spring, this palette can only be used in the fall. I'm definitely one that just whatever I'm feeling, that's what's going on my face today. So this was a little bit challenging, but I did see a lot of other creators that were making similar videos, and I thought it would be fun to kind of look through my collection and think about like what kinds of stuff really screams fall to me. So first and foremost is the Jackie Aina palette. So I'm sure you've seen this 100 times over, but I am just going to show it to you again. It has some really rich browns. It has some really nice like bright purples. It's got some kind of bronzy shades over here. So I think this palette does a really good job of covering a lot of like autumnal colors in the color story of this palette. So if you have this one, definitely think about trying it out during this fall season. Sticking in the warm toned category, I'm going to show you next the Sugar Pill Capsule 2 collection. This palette here looks probably very summer over here, but if you kind of cover up these four shades, you've got a really nice, pretty, like pinky brown color story, and you've got this really pretty duochrome that kind of does like a blue-brown kind of a thing. So I think between these colors, you really have a really nice fall color palette that you can use to kind of work off of. Alright, another palette that you may not have thought about, but if it's in your collection, this would be a great fall palette, and that is the Nomad Berlin Underground palette. So if you've not seen the inside of this one, it does come with a nice big mirror. But this is the color story. You've got some really bright like orangey colors, you've got some really dark grays, you've got some kind of rusty green shades. This would be perfect for like a fall grungy kind of look. Definitely something that I could rock with this top that I have on, but this is a really, really great palette for fall. If you have it already, definitely pull it out and consider using it. Alright, and the last like super warm toned palette I'm going to talk about is the Gingerbread palette. This is the Gingerbread Spice palette, excuse me, from Too Faced, and this one has this beautiful kind of pinky peachy. This one has a really beautiful like pinky peachy kind of color story, but it does go a little bit deeper. You've got kind of this deep brown here that you can work off of, and then you've got this shade over here. Listen. This is my aunt texting me. Her channel is BTK Unfiltered, by the way. If you want to go take a look at her, she does food and beauty stuff, and she is hilarious, so definitely go check her out. Alright, so you have this kind of like olivey grunge shade over here that I was really drawn to. I think that's part of what sold me on this palette initially. But you have some really pretty shades that you can kind of pair with that to make a really cohesive look. Alright, now I'm going to talk about some cool toned palette options. So the first thing that I would talk about would be this Profusion Smoky palette. I literally just picked this up today. I filmed a first impressions video. I have no idea which one's going to come up first. But spoiler alert, I really like this palette. I think it is so nice, and for $5 it gives me everything I wanted out of the Natasha Denona Glam palette without having to pay the Natasha Denona Glam palette price. This was $5, so definitely a winner there. The Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette is another one that's kind of cool toned, and it has a lot of like really similar shades, and you've even got like some silvery black kind of tones down here. I really like the shimmers in this one because they're very like bright, so I think they'll brighten up an inner corner, they'll brighten up your lid, but you've got those darker and cooler tones to really round out the look and give like a nice fall look. The next one, if we're going really dark and really deep, is going to be a palette that a lot of people didn't like, and I actually really liked it, so I'm really happy that I did, because when it was sneak peeked I was obsessed from the jump, and that is the Lime Crime Venus Immortalis palette. Now this palette has 8 shades. It is very cool toned, very vampy, and I think that's what makes it perfect for fall. You have, oh gosh, let's turn that mirror down. You have some really pretty like shimmery tones here. This one is a little bit more like taupey silver, and this one's like a pure silver. You've got this gray, you've got this sort of maroon shade. This white makes a great inner corner. So I think this palette altogether is a really, really pretty, like grungy, fall, vampy kind of a look. But also very cool toned. Alright. One that I think is just a really good fall palette, just because it's got such a unique color story, is the Saharan palette by Juvia's Place. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the Saharan 2 palette by Juvia's Place. But when you pop this open, you've got this really, really pretty like maroon shade here. You've got this peach kind of duochrome here. You've got a gold, and you've got these really, really dark browns that you can use to kind of round out a look and deepen out a crease. I think this is a really, really pretty palette, and I think it's one that people often forget, or they look at and they're not quite sure how to use. So I think this one would be really, really great for fall. Okay. Now I want to jump into some sort of like berry toned kind of things, and I'm going to lead off with the Makeup Geek and Manny MUA palette, which this is like 4 or 5 years old by now, but I really like this shade here, which is Mars, and I like this duochrome Insomnia. I did a look where I kind of took these two and made a halo eye with those two, really, really deep vampy halo eye, and I used some of these colors to kind of just buff out my crease so it looked a little bit more cohesive. And then I put this in the center of the halo eye, and it gave me this really pretty like grungy blue, brown, red kind of a tone, and I thought the look altogether like screamed fall. So this is something, if you have it in your collection still, definitely dig it out and play with it this fall. This next palette is one of my favorites, and I feel like I don't give it enough love, so I really need to start using it some more, but that's the reason why we do videos like this. So this is the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette, and I did not have the guts to throw away this outer packaging because it just looks so, so pretty. Like, who doesn't want something this pretty sitting on their vanity, right? So when you open it up, you definitely have like a warm berry kind of color story. Again, I love this really taupey shade. I love these two shades and this one for kind of buffing out in my crease. This shade makes a really pretty like outer corner kind of a color. These shimmers, like I cannot complain at all about the Colored Rain formula for their mattes or their shimmers. I really do enjoy it. If you have this palette, it would be great, great for fall. And I'm so sorry my white balance keeps readjusting itself. I think with the shininess of some of these palettes, it darkens up the entire frame, so I am so sorry for that. Now if you want to go like full on berry, you of course could pick up the Naked Cherry palette. This one is going to give you like a monochromatic berry red color. There is nothing else you're going to do with this. This is straight berry colors. But I do think it's pretty for fall. There are some really pretty shimmers in here, even though every look is going to kind of look the same because it's a monochromatic palette. I do really enjoy this one, and I think it's a nice one to have for fall. And then if you want something that kind of goes in that vein, but you want something that's going to be a little bit more versatile, I would definitely recommend checking out the Nabla Cutie palette. This is the Wild Berry palette. It's a 6-pan palette, and I think they retail for $24, if I remember correctly. But this just has a beautiful color story. Like these two shades in the center, every time I open this palette, I have to use those two shades because they're just so impactful on the eyes. This like duochrome shade makes such an impactful lid shade. It makes a great inner corner to kind of like spice up the look. You can kind of see how it shifts from sort of that peachy pink to like a bright blue duochrome. Absolutely love this palette. Could not recommend it enough. Okay. And then some of the palettes that I pulled out were more like colorful, or they just gave me like fall and Halloween vibes, and I wanted to share those with you as well. So the first one is the Villains palette, the Misunderstood Disney Villains palette from ColourPop. I don't think this palette is available anymore. It might have restocked, but I really am drawn to like the chartreuse shade in here. Sing, Jetsam, and Revenge are like all blackened kind of fall shades. You do have like a straight black in here as well. I love the fact that there's no pressed glitters in this, because I'm really tired of the pressed glitters in all of the ColourPop palettes. So for me, that's another selling point on this one as compared to like the Hocus Pocus palette that just came out. I do think that that palette is pretty in a sense, but I feel like it's way too muted. Like Hocus Pocus, you have so many like bright characters in that movie that you could have really taken it and gone like really vivid colors, and I think people would have been even more drawn to it. I think right now people are buying it just for the packaging and maybe not necessarily the color story, and the color story has gotten a lot of mixed reviews from people, so I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. But this one, I feel like it goes really dark, really grungy, and it's really interesting, so definitely like this one for fall. Another one that I recently reviewed on my channel is the Makeup Revolution Forever Flawless palette in Enchanted. So it's the one with this kind of like spooky full moon on the cover. And when you open it up, it's got all these kind of spooky shades here. I love how like cool toned this side is, and I really like these kind of grungy greens up here. I did a look using this green and then like this chartreusey kind of green, and I really liked how that came out. So if you're looking for something that's inexpensive, that's fall vibes, definitely consider looking at this one. It's only $15. And then last but not least, I could not have a fall palette video without talking about Lunar Beauty's Moonspell palette. This is another like just banger of a palette, okay? And I really love all of the packaging that they did for this, all the effort that they did. You can even see there's like pages of the book here. Like they really went out on this one, so I really do appreciate that. When you open up, of course, great big mirror, but then you have this really beautiful color story. You've got these really grungy kind of greens on the bottom, and then you've got some really interesting like purples and this duochrome shade right here. More neutrals in the center, but I think this color story is surprisingly cohesive for how bright and varied it is. So this definitely would be a palette that I would look at if you can still get your hands on it. I don't know if Manny still has this palette for sale or not. You would have to check his website. I think they also sell on like Morphe or Beauty Bay or something. But again, this was from last Halloween, so I don't know if this is still available. Okay, so that concludes this video talking about my picks for fall themed eyeshadow palettes. Feel free to leave in the comments the palettes that you really gravitate towards in fall, and maybe I'll be able to discover something new. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm going to catch you in my next video. Bye!